In 1576, a carpenter turned actor in England turned the bygone practices of the medieval pageant wagon into the first permanent theater of England. His name was James Burbage, and he simply called his theater the Theater. Welcome once again to Theater, Storytelling in Action. Burbage's new theater was a towering structure that could be seen from the opposite side of London. It seated over 1,000 patrons in its house. The stage was backed up by a scene house that evolved from the pageant wagon mansion discussed in earlier episodes. The stage thrust into an open yard, like the platea of the pageant wagon. Around this stage, patrons stood to view the action of the play. This three-sided orientation continued into the galleries, where the affluent patrons could sit to watch the play. Burbage's theater made the work of one of his playwrights, William Shakespeare, possible. This is the historical context of the thrust stage, which is the focus of this episode. The physical arrangement between the house and the stage in this theater space sees the stage thrust into the house with the audience arranged on three sides of the action. In 1963, British director Tyrone Guthrie established the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which employed a thrust stage and produced a repertory of Shakespearean plays. The problem that many directors had in the initial stages of the history of the Guthrie is that most were trained in proscenium-style staging and quickly found that the geography of the thrust stage required a different set of conventions. On the proscenium stage, the down center block is the strongest. On the thrust stage, this block would be strong for only a third of the audience, because the actor would have their back to most of the audience. The thrust stage requires a rethinking. Before we solve these staging problems, let's look at the characteristics of this versatile space. While the proscenium has a vast tradition of staging, the thrust space, as well as the arena, is still subject to many creative approaches to solve staging problems. However, it can be said that the approach to all of these followed the ruling convention of diorama staging. The diorama is an artistic display which creates layers, with the shortest and smallest element in the front growing in height and size as the elements move to the background. This is the general approach that set designers follow when creating a set for the thrust stage. Where we said that the goal of the proscenium arch was creating stage pictures, we can say that the goal of the thrust space is to create stage sculptures. In order to present all perspectives of the stage sculptures, movement must be more prevalent in the thrust space, making it very conducive to pageantry and action scenes. This can be seen in the abundance of pageantry and battles that permeated the thrust stages of the plays of Shakespeare and his contemporaries. This makes for a very dynamic stage space, one of the strengths of the thrust space. The geography of the thrust space requires directors and designers take into account the needs of the diorama convention, as well as employ movement techniques that highlight the statuesque but dynamic needs of the thrust space. Rather than dividing up the thrust space into the 9 blocks of varying strength, think in terms of 9 blocks that serve different purposes. These areas can serve as locations for either movement or rest. We can refer to this as the move and rest approach to thrust staging. While the proscenium arch attempts to create sightlines that are the same for every member of the house, an actor on the thrust stage provides vastly different looks for virtually every member of the audience. We can think of the center stage of the thrust space as a strong area, but the actor in this space must pivot often to share their performance with each of the 3 sides of the house. Like the down center block on the proscenium space, center stage is the space for climactic action and should be used dramatically, but sparingly. The upstage area of the thrust is typically supported by a facade or scene house, which represents a locale and is where the actors make their entrances and exits. Often, the actors will also make their entrances and exits from the aisles, which, we will learn, provide two other prominent acting areas. The up-center block on the thrust stage represents a strong block because it is a location where actors may stop and provide relatively consistent sightlines for the audience. Because of this, however, there is a danger of staging too much in the up-center block. This will result in a static staging of your play. Besides the center stage and up-center blocks, we consider three lanes that move around the space. These are active areas where characters are on the move. If they need to come to a stop, they can come to rest at up-center if they don't play a prominent role in the action, or at center stage if they need to take the focus of the scene. There are two other locations that are often overlooked as spaces where actors can come to a rest. These are referred to as the open aisle positions. An actor takes the open aisle position when they stand at the corner of the thrust with their back to the aisle. This eliminates their blocking the audience's sightlines towards center stage and upstage, as well as allowing the movement to pass through the lanes relatively unobstructed. It also provides them with solid sightlines for the audience members who sit on either side of the thrust. Considering the thrust in terms of the move and rest approach, we can say that the upstage blocks, along with the aisle blocks, serve as areas of rest. The three lanes serve as areas where the actors should move from block to block. Set designers can assist in the stage sculptures by providing scenic elements that are taller at the back of the thrust space, that graduate to lower and smaller elements as they move to the front of the stage, thus taking advantage of the diorama effect. Depending on the height of the stage itself, backless benches and low stools may be used to provide physical levels that will aid in creating clear sightlines to center stage and upstage. When James Burbage built the theater, one of his goals was to bring the largest number of audience members as close as possible to the action of the stage. As a result, Shakespeare's plays were written to include battle scenes, sword fights, and formal pageants that were conducive to this dynamic stage orientation. However, the intimate arrangement made the beautiful poetry and humanity of its characters take focus as well. So employing the diorama convention to highlight the sculptural nature of the thrust space, as well as employing the move and rest approach to staging the action in a dynamic fashion, uses all of the areas of the stage and make the thrust space a truly theatrical experience. The intimacy of bringing the audience in close proximity to the stage is the icing on the cake. There's another space, however, which creates an even more intimate environment. We'll take a look at the arena space in the next episode of Theater, Storytelling in Action. I look forward to our next visit.